Hey guys, Phil from Trail Talk here, and today we're doing a bit of a bike check and setup guide on my 2021 Polygon Siskiu T8. If you haven't already checked out the first ride review, definitely check that out first. The link's in the description. I go into a bit more detail about how the bike rides. So I've had my T8 for around 2 months now and I've made some changes. So let's jump in and see what I've done. The frame is a Polygon Siskiu T8 in a size large. I'm 185 centimeters just for reference and it fits me perfectly. So if you're around 177 centimeters to 186 centimeters, it should fit you perfectly too. The suspension is taken care of by Fox. Starting with the rear, I still have the stock Fox DPS, but I have tweaked things a little bit. I am 83 kilograms kitted, and I have increased from the 0.4 volume spacer that comes stock to the 0.6. This helps with two things. One, I get a little bit more support off bigger drops, and two, I can run it a little bit deeper in the sag, so run a little less pressure, and this makes things a little bit more supple on the chunky stuff. Before, I was running 175 PSI, and now I'm running around 165. But I will experiment with this a bit more, as I've only had 2 rides on this new setup, and I haven't hit really any big drops yet. So stick around and subscribe for the long-term review where I'll talk a bit more about this. The 3-position compression switch I always leave open, and rebound is 6 clicks from fully clockwise. Onto the Fox fork now, and I've done some tweaking here too. The stock setup has no spacers, and the Fox 34 really needs to be loaded up with spacers to get the most out of it. I currently have 3 installed as this was all I had, but I think 4 would be perfect. The fork definitely has a tendency to blow through its travel and dive a bit. To combat this, along with the volume spacers, I have the compression dial around 1/3 closed from fully open. This helps the fork sit a little bit higher in the stroke and be a bit more controlled when it gets rough. Other than that, I'm running 90 to 95 PSI depending on how rough the trails are, and then the rebound is 7 clicks from fully clockwise as well. I've also tweaked the brakes a little bit too. The Tektro Orion 4-pots work pretty damn well for me, they just need good pads and rotors to shine. So I swapped the rotors to a pair of Shimano RT70 rotors, so these are the SLX ones, with a 203mm up front and then 180 in the rear. These are a fair bit better than the resin-only 180mm rotors that come stock on the bike. Then I'm also going to install a pair of Shimano Saint metallic pads as these are compatible with the Tektros, and these will further increase the bite too. Onto the drivetrain now, and it's fully stock. The 12-speed Shimano SLX drivetrain works amazingly, it shifts clean, and you can shift a little bit under load, which is good too if you want to race or do a bit of sprinting. But I definitely don't recommend doing this all the time, and it's much better than NX and GX Eagle in my opinion. I do have a pair of 170mm cranks that I will install soon, as I have a lot of rocky ledgy climbs that claim pedal strikes for breakfast in Sydney. So something shorter than the stock 175s will help a fair bit. So now let's talk wheels and tires. I'm not gonna lie, I actually really like the stock hand stamped tires that come with the bike, so I might put them back on in the future, but I really wanted to try out a Maxxis Dissector in the rear. The wheels are stock standard, but as I said, I'm running that Maxxis Dissector in the rear and then an Assegai up front, both in the EXO casing and the 3C Max Terra compound. The 2.5-inch Assegai is definitely overkill for this kind of bike. I think a 2.4 DHR would be the perfect tire for this bike up front, and this will help with rolling speed a bit because I do notice with the Assegai, it's definitely a little bit slow up front. When it comes to the setup of these tires, I'm definitely trying something out new. So the front is set up tubeless, but the rear is set up with Tannis tire armor, and I'm really digging this setup. Normally, I run a double down in the rear, but with the Tannis, I can run an EXO casing, so save some weight there. And then with the super light 83 gram Tubolito tube, the weight is actually pretty similar with the Tannis and the Tubolito compared to my double down tubeless setup, so that's pretty impressive. Puncture protection is really great with a Tannis, definitely better than a double down tire setup tubeless, but the main benefit I'm noticing is the ride feel. It's so well damped, and on a shorter travel bike, it really shines over the chunky stuff. It just really makes the bike feel a lot more composed on those really ledgy, chunky sections.
And there's definitely loads of support when pushing into corners as well. In terms of pressure, I normally run 23 up front and 28 in the rear, but with a Tannis, I can run 23 front and 23 rear, so run a fair bit lower pressures in the rear, thanks to that Tannis, as I said. And the last of the main spec is the dropper post, and that's completely stock, so it's the 170mm drop Trans X. It's performed really well, but I might change the lever to something a bit fancier in the future. Now onto the finishing kit, and I've changed a few things here. Starting with the pedals, I'm running the Entity PP20 pedals. So these are super light, nylon composite pedals, super grippy, decently big platform, and I've been running them a lot on my bikes lately. And they're definitely great value for money too. The saddle I changed to suit my personal preference, but the stock one also grabbed my pants a bit on a few rock rolls, so I had to go. I replaced it with my personal fave Fabric Scoop Elite Shallow, which is definitely a saddle you can't go wrong with. It seems to suit a lot of people. Now onto the bars and stem. Personally, I really like a stack height of 630mm for my height, and a T8 is 10mm shorter than that, so it's a little bit shorter than what I'm used to. So I opted for a higher rise bar. The bar I chose was the Nuke-Proof Sam Hill Series riser bar. It comes in 780mm wide, that's my personal favorite, and it's got a super high 38mm rise. Then I also put on a 50mm Deity Copperhead stem in copper as well, and it looks really nice, contrast with the purple. I'm a big fan of 45 to 50mm stems compared to say a 35. I find it a bit easier to weight the front end, corner, and climb without any real sacrifices on the descents. Together with the bars, I felt a bit more comfortable in upright pedaling, and then a bit more confident on the descents. To round it all off, I chucked on a set of DMR Death Grips, so decent grips there. Never tried them before, but I've heard good things, so we'll see how they go.
So there you go, there's my bike check of my 2021 Siskiu T8. I don't think I'll make any more real significant changes. It's pretty damn dialed at the moment. Just a few maybe tweaks with the suspension, but the setup's really dialed, so I'm pretty stoked with how it's running at the moment. So if you've got the bike, I hope it gave you a few insights into how to set up the suspension. And if you're interested in getting the bike or anything like that, hopefully this is giving you a little bit of inspiration as well. Other than that, bike checks are pretty cool and it's something to nerd out on. On a side note, if you do want to try any of the Maxxis tyres, the Tannis tyre armour that I've got, or the bike, the affiliate link for Bicycles Online in Australia is in the description as well if you want to grab that stuff too, and it really supports the channel. But if you like the bike or want to see me change anything, definitely leave a comment below. Always like the video, it's always good when you do that, and subscribe as well. And as always guys, thanks for watching. See ya.